So from a core technology perspective, this is just a high-level slide, and it talks about some of the things that happen in our identity and access management space on a regular basis. And if you look at the physical security section that I have there, the identity convergence, your physical and electronic, has become a key, especially in this hybrid market that we're working in today. So you have people on site, you have people remote. How are you able to understand what they're accessing electronically and where they're accessing that from physically? Do you have controls that at one point in time, they were only allowed to access things when they were physically on a premises? So we've had to pivot and expand that. So now we have a second set of controls and a whole new set of controls and compliance that have to go around what a remote access looks like. And so by working with the SAP tools, you're able to leverage some key operational efficiencies and security controls around how you build that. So in terms of asset management and the identity and access management space, I found that it's important to become an identity evangelist. And you do that by thinking in terms of the business, not as a security professional. The last bullet here, I'll cover that. So the key for success in your program is working to maintain your single source of truth for your identities. SuccessFactors is great at that, having Fieldglass bolted on to drive that single source of record for your contractors. Oftentimes, and I know that that's something with Entergy, is we will have contractors who will then flip and become full-time employees. So being able to track that identity record and track the history of their entitlements and their access from their contractor days into becoming a full-time employee, and vice versa if they go from employee to contractor. Having that continuity is key to maintaining your asset record and maintaining the chain of custody in terms of what they have access to and how you can audit that. So you need to look at what business problems can you help solve while also creating better security hygiene. And this is something that I heard a long time ago, and I've kept it with me, is a lot of times people in information security are known as the Department of No. You don't want to be the Department of No. You want to be the Department of let me help you solve your problem and improve your security at the same time. And by having those conversations and being able to think in terms of the business, then it's much easier to develop a security solution that not only makes things more secure, but it's also improving business operations. So in working with your business partners, a couple of examples that I wanted to talk through today. So we have new hire metrics. I think any large organization, part of what happens there are organizational health and customer satisfaction. Identity and access management probably has, in any organization that I'm aware of, more of a forward-facing customer interaction, whether it's the paying customers or the employees and the contractors of the organization. Will have more interaction with that population than any other security group normally will on a regular basis. So in HR's perspective, one of the things that they should be looking at is, what's the new hire satisfaction? So on day one, how frustrating is it to sit down at your laptop and you can't log on, or you can't get to your email, or you can't go to do the mandatory training that you have to do from your LMS systems? So that's something that as an IAM professional, you can work with your HR teams to help streamline that and make it more efficient based on integrations between the AlertEnterprise platform and SuccessFactors. We've been able to drive some of those improvements. And so discussing how those pieces function together and being able, based on job codes and locations and what new hires need to have access to, then you can factor those things into the record when it comes across. And so your provisioning model is able to pick those up, and then that becomes part of your birthright provisioning. So it's one less thing that you have to worry about. So HR knows that people are going to be able to do what they need to do on day one. They'll be able to get into the general access areas of the buildings and facilities where they have to go to work. So it just makes a better experience, but you're also ensuring that there's more security for the new hires at day one. So looking at background check processes, work with your HR professionals to find ways to automate incorporating that into the identity record for your employees. So that helps deliver real-time compliance. So what I mean by that is we have critical infrastructure protection as part of what we do on a regular basis. And so within the NERC-CIP standard, we are required to maintain a training record for all employees who have access. Those employees are required to retake their training in a 15-month period. And background checks also fall into that. So the background check is the standard requires 7 years. We currently do a 5-year. And so by having this information, both the background checks and the training records tied into that identity record, again, we're converging the identity with the physical and what they have access to and where they can go. With the electronic, again, what records they can touch and what systems they can work on. we're then able to automate those checks every day. So whenever a record is set to expire, it will expire if it's not renewed appropriately in a timely manner. And so then that critical infrastructure protection, that SIP access, is automatically revoked. So on the front end of that record, without any interaction on behalf of a human being, we've been able to eliminate what would normally be a compliance failure, because we revoked the access when it needed to be revoked, and there was no failover to possibly have a gap where that person would inappropriately be able to access either a physical facility or an electronic record. Now, we find that those cooperative conversations with your HR team are very beneficial, and by working together with them, we were able to solve that problem. And it wasn't just them saying we need to do it, and it wasn't the access team saying, well, you have to do this, because it was a collaborative effort, and it was very beneficial, and it was a big win for the organization. The other thing to consider when talking with your HR partners is your insider threat programs. There are various reporting frameworks within HR departments and teams, or they have the ability to see data that would be considered employee confidential that other parts of your insider threat programs won't be able to see. And so by bringing them into the conversation and allowing them to provide input and find ways that they can feed information into your insider threat program will only make it stronger. And the thing about your insider threat program is you can only react to what you see or what you know. So whether it's behavior observation within your critical systems, whether it's your nuclear facilities or other highly critical and sensitive parts of your organization, the more information you have, the easier it is to make a decision or to see something that's a potential red flag before it happens. And in today's day and age, with a more decentralized workforce, information and gathering information and timely information has become even more critical than it was in the past. So, of course, the security benefit to these conversations is you're improving your least privileged access model so that you always only have people gaining the access that they need at that point in time to do their job, and nothing more. All right, so again, continue working with your business partners. So let's look at this from an application owner perspective. So by working with identity and access management and your application owners, reducing provisioning times from days to seconds is huge. You're able to enforce your separation of duties up front during the request process and not after the fact. And you're increasing your security by enforcing your least privileged access and removing any human error from the process. And this also can help reduce insider threat potentials. One example I'm going to use here is with SAP's GRC. If you have a separate team of folks within SAP who are running GRC and are handling manual provisioning across your platforms, that's a separate entity. And so it makes it more difficult to coordinate your identity and access management policies and procedures, because now you're having to involve multiple teams, and there may be exceptions to that. So if you're able to incorporate and get your SAP provisioning into your identity and access management program, you can automate a lot of that functionality so that it becomes more streamlined and it adheres to your corporate policies and procedures. The people that you then had within your SAP function who were manually doing all the provisioning in that GRC space and assuring that separation of duties were in place, you can now repurpose those. And that goes here to my last bullet point. When and where you can automate and get operational efficiencies from work, that then frees up your smart people to go and do smart people things. So imagine, if you would, with your team, if you all of a sudden had 20 people who were previously occupied before that you could now retask to other things. That's a whole lot of automation and operational efficiency you've now freed up that you can put back out into your operations to do other things. And another piece of this is through the automation, you now have audit records and you have logs that can show when access was accomplished, when it was added, when it was revoked, when transfer occurred. So within your SOX and your GDPR programs, you'll be able to show that information up front, and it makes it easier to gather the audit evidence when the time comes, because it's all automated and it's there, and you simply do a quick query to pull the data and provide that to the auditors.